Bonjour à toutes et à tous et bienvenue dans une nouvelle vidéo sur Learn to French. Je m'appelle Eden et j'enseigne le français. Hello and welcome to another video on Learn to French. If you are new here, my name is Eden and I teach French. In today's video, we are going to talk about le monologue suivi du DELF A2. I have mentioned it a few times already, but the monologue suivi is the part where you have to talk continuously to your examiner for 2 minutes regarding a topic that you chose. So this is the second part of your production orale du DELF A2. So let me give you a few tips and guide you through this test. That way you know what to expect on the big day. Alors, tout d'abord, vous devez être capable de parler tout seul ou toute seule pendant 2 minutes. So you need to first be capable of speaking for 2 minutes by yourself. L'examinateur vous écoute et peut vous poser des questions à la fin. The examiner is listening to you and could potentially ask questions in the end. Voici quelques conseils pour réussir. Here are a few tips for you to succeed. You need to ask yourself the right questions. Posez-vous les bonnes questions. And the main ones, est-ce que je connais les formules basiques pour entrer en contact avec quelqu'un? Do I know the basic sentences and words to enter in contact with someone? Est-ce que je sais réagir à des propositions? Do I know how to react to propositions in French? If someone is suggesting something, for example. Est-ce que j'ai assez de vocabulaire et est-ce que je connais assez d'adjectifs pour décrire? Do I have enough vocabulary and do I know enough adjectives to describe in French? And the last question that you should ask yourself is, est-ce que je peux parler sans attendre la réaction de l'examinateur? Am I able to speak without waiting for the reaction of the examiner? Most of the time, many examiners will try to fill in blanks. Like, for example, if you are hesitating or if you don't know what to say, sometimes the examiner could potentially fill in the blanks. And that is not what we're looking for today. Alors, quel est le vocabulaire que l'on va utiliser? Usually, you need to master vocabulary, of course, for DELF A1, A2, B1, and so on. But for the DELF A2 production orale, most of the time the vocabulary is going to be pretty basic, something that's directly affecting you, such as your country, your friends, your family, how to describe something, your neighborhood, your job or your studies, your tastes, your habits, your activities, your city, or even the main places you go to. Les pays, les amis, le travail, la famille, les goûts, la description, l'école, les habitudes, la ville et les lieux. How about grammar? Well, usually, before you hop into DELF A2, there is some grammar that you need to master really well. So grammar points that you need to master, and the most important ones would be le passé composé and l'imparfait. Of course, aside from the ones that you already learn in A1, you need to add le passé composé et l'imparfait, so when to use one or the other, or to use both. Le futur proche, near future, potentially futur simple, but you can focus on le futur proche. Les indicateurs de temps, so time indicators, pendant, dans, depuis, il y a. Les connecteurs temporels. So these are time connectors. Alors, d'abord, ensuite, puis, enfin. Connectors make your speech sound nicer and less like a robot. So that's why it's important to know the main connectors in French. And speaking of connectors, you also need to know the logical connectors. So, parce que, alors, donc, pour, mais, car, and a lot more. So make sure to know those connectors and how to use them. The reason I'm telling you this is that the examiner doesn't want someone who's just aligning sentences. They want to hear someone who knows how to speak, how to communicate, and For speech, usually connectors are something that indicates how rich your speech can be. So your main communication skills should be décrire une expérience ou des projets. So describe something that you've lived or plans in the future. Localiser, so to locate something or someone. Parler de ses activités ou de ses habitudes. Talk about your habits or your activities. Présenter une personne, introducing someone. Raconter une histoire, tell a story. Réagir à une proposition, react to a proposition. Expliquer ou justifier quelque chose, explain or justify something. Comparer, comparison, so you need to know how to compare things in French. Acheter quelque chose, buying something. Or inviter ou accepter et refuser une invitation. So to invite someone or accept or decline an invitation. Parler de soi et de son environnement familier. So talking about yourself and what's familiar to you, your everyday life. So these are the main communication skills that you need to master before taking your DELF A2, especially for la production orale. And from a cultural point of view, there are some things that you can do to make it more appealing to your examiner to have you. For example, always say hello to them. Always greet them. Saluez toujours votre examinateur. Deuxième point, ne pas avoir un chewing-gum ou un bonbon dans la bouche. Please stay away from bubble gums or candies in your mouth while you're talking to your examiner. This is extremely rude. Utilisez vous, so use vous to talk to them directly. Now keep in mind that in production orale, you might need to use tu during the exercise because this is the third test in your production orale where you have a role play with the examiner, and sometimes you could be asked to be the examiner's friend or something like that, so you're going to use tu. But other than this context, every time that you talk to your examiner, you should use vous and not tu. Utilisez les formules de politesse. Merci, s'il vous plaît, pardon, excusez-moi. Always be polite. Another point that I would like you to remember is regarder l'examinateur et pas ses notes. Try to make eye contact with your examiner as often as you can and don't just look at your notes. This is why I never suggest you to write all the sentences that you're going to say and never look at your examiner. That is also very rude, and most of the time in France, people like when you dedicate your attention to them when you speak. I guess this is kind of anywhere around the world, a sign of respect. Try to look at your examiner when you talk to them. Prendre congé correctement. Say goodbye to your examiner, of course. Now, let's head over to the preparation of this monologue suivi. You are in the room and you have the topics that you need to choose. Remember, there are two of them that you simply pick without seeing them, and then you choose the one that you prefer. Now, once you've chosen the one that you prefer, analyze the subject and write down the answers. Remember, you have 10 minutes, so quickly write down the answers to these two questions. Pourquoi est-ce que j'ai choisi ce sujet? Why did I choose this subject? Et 2, quel est le vocabulaire à connaître? And 2, what is the vocabulary that I should know here? So you can write down the answers, or you can simply prepare with the answers in your mind. So let's take a look at an example here. This is a subject that was available for the DELF A2. Quelle est votre profession? Aimez-vous votre métier? Pourquoi? Décrivez votre journée de travail en général. So let's try to answer. Pourquoi j'ai choisi ce sujet? Why did I choose this subject? So the answer, of course, depends on what you think, on your opinion, so I'm not going to answer it. But the second question, quel est le vocabulaire à connaître? What is the vocabulary that I need to know? Well, here I would say travail, bureau, entreprise, horaire, routine, activité, etc. So now that you have that in mind, build your answer. How do you do that? I don't want you to write all of the text that you're going to read out loud to your examiner. That's not what we're looking for. So what we're going to do is try to build a plan and make short sentences, and then you can fill in with the words that you know while you're talking to your examiner. Of course, the examiner does not want you to read notes. They want you to speak, to talk to them. So here are the examples for this subject. I'm going to imagine that I am un chef cuisinier, so a cook. So you take the questions that are in the subject. So the first one was, quelle est votre profession? Chef cuisinier. Quickly write that down. Deuxième question, aimez-vous votre métier? Oui, j'aime mon métier. Troisième question, pourquoi? So here, I can write something like, j'aime cuisiner pour les autres et j'aime le restaurant où je travaille. And lastly, décrivez votre journée de travail en général. I can simply write something like, le lundi au vendredi soir de 16h à 23h. So these are the main things that you are going to keep in mind. This will help you build your presentation. Remember, you only have 10 minutes. Vous n'avez que 10 minutes. So let's start your plan. Commencez votre plan. Dans un plan, il y a l'introduction, le développement et la conclusion. So introduction, development and conclusion. L'introduction, vous allez présenter rapidement ce que vous allez faire. So in the introduction, you are going to briefly and quickly introduce what you're going to do right after. Dans le développement, so in the development, you are going to express your ideas and your opinion on each point that we've seen in the step right before this one. Et la conclusion, petite synthèse de ce que vous avez présenté. For the conclusion, you're simply and briefly going to summarize what you've been through. So once you have that plan in mind, vous allez compléter chaque réponse en développant avec un point ou deux. So you need to complete each answer that you've written down, you've briefly written down with one element or two. You can add things that are more precise and more descriptions, but that's going to be afterwards. So what you can write is you can simply write the development and not go through introduction and conclusion in your draft paper, because that's not really useful right now. You'll have that in mind, but the main point here is to be able to express your opinion and what you think. Here's an example of what I could come up with. Je suis chef cuisinier dans un restaurant italien à Lyon. J'aime mon métier parce que j'aime cuisiner pour les autres. J'aime le restaurant où je travaille. Mes collègues sont sympathiques et je peux tester de nouvelles recettes. Ce que je préfère, ce sont les desserts. J'ai beaucoup de responsabilités. Mes horaires de travail ne sont pas faciles tous les jours. Je travaille tous les soirs, du lundi au vendredi. Je commence à 16h et je finis à 23h. Je suis très fatiguée après, mais je peux me reposer le lendemain matin. This is a short text that you are going to develop and elaborate while you speak. Keep in mind that there are some things that you're going to add, such as connectors. Remember, les connecteurs, car, et, donc, mais, and add in words to express your tastes if needed. So for the introduction, what you're going to do is to briefly introduce what you're going to talk about. Par exemple, bonjour, aujourd'hui je vais vous parler de mon travail et de ce que je fais pour gagner ma vie. Le développement, exprimez vos pensées et votre avis. So here you're going to take what we've seen, so the short text, and simply add in some elements, fill in the blanks maybe, and add in some description. So what you can do is create a table and just with the main text and add in some words if you need to. La conclusion, une petite synthèse de ce que vous avez présenté. So summarize what you've just talked about. So for example, you can use something like, pour conclure, je suis passionnée par la cuisine et j'aime beaucoup mon métier. But you can use other expressions, other sentences, of course. Keep in mind that the draft is for you. So you can work either with just plain text, or you can build a grid in which, once again, you write down the short text that we've worked on. So you answer the questions briefly with one sentence, and then you develop everything. And then you simply add an extra column where you're going to write down the additional points that you're going to talk about. That's something that could work for you. We have come to our final part here in this video. So I'm going to give you what I could have done for this kind of exercise. So remember, the subject is le travail. Quelle est votre profession? Aimez-vous votre métier? Pourquoi? Décrivez votre journée de travail en général. Bonjour, aujourd'hui je vais vous parler de mon travail et de ce que je fais pour gagner ma vie. Je suis chef cuisinier dans un restaurant italien à Lyon depuis 1 an. J'aime mon métier parce que j'adore cuisiner pour les autres. Puis le restaurant où je travaille est un lieu parfait. Mes collègues sont sympathiques et nous avons toujours de très bonnes critiques. Ensuite, j'aime mon métier car je peux tester et créer de nouvelles recettes. Ce que je préfère cuisiner, ce sont les desserts. Les clients les adorent. En plus, j'ai beaucoup de responsabilités au restaurant. Mes horaires de travail ne sont pas faciles tous les jours. En fait, je travaille tous les soirs, du lundi au vendredi. Je commence à 16h et je finis à 23h. Quand je rentre, je suis très fatiguée, mais je peux me reposer le lendemain matin. Mon métier n'est pas toujours simple, mais j'aime ça. J'espère m'améliorer et devenir chef cuisinier dans un grand restaurant un jour. Bonjour, aujourd'hui je vais vous parler de mon travail et de ce que je fais pour gagner ma vie. Je suis chef cuisinier dans un restaurant italien à Lyon depuis 1 an. J'aime mon métier parce que j'adore cuisiner pour les autres. Puis le restaurant où je travaille est un lieu parfait. Mes collègues sont sympathiques et nous avons toujours de très bonnes critiques. Ensuite, j'aime mon métier car je peux tester et créer de nouvelles recettes. Ce que je préfère cuisiner, ce sont les desserts. Les clients les adorent. En plus, j'ai beaucoup de responsabilités au restaurant. Mes horaires de travail ne sont pas faciles tous les jours. En fait, je travaille tous les soirs, du lundi au vendredi. Je commence à 16h et je finis à 23h. Quand je rentre, je suis très fatiguée, mais je peux me reposer le lendemain matin. Mon métier n'est pas toujours simple, mais j'aime ça. J'espère m'améliorer et devenir chef cuisinier dans un grand restaurant un jour. Et voilà. Now keep in mind that this is just my own text. Yours can be completely different. You can add in or remove information. The main goal here is not to write down a full text and read it out loud to your examiner. Cette vidéo est maintenant terminée. I hope that you enjoyed staying with me today. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like this video, leave a comment down below or simply subscribe to my channel Learn to French. Merci beaucoup d'être resté avec moi et je vous dis à très bientôt pour une nouvelle vidéo sur Learn to French. Au revoir!